Kakadosh Boker Or, Daf Yomi Masechet Batra Daf Kuf Mem Tet Amud Aleph. Yeah, we basically finished off by saying that in our Tana, Matnita Tana, we were talking about Yachasin Yerat, so we're talking about Raul Yoshua, just like Rabbi Yochanan Broka. Ibailehu, this is where we are. The last word on the line of Kuf Mem Chet Amud Bet. Ibailehu, so they're going to ask the following question. Yane Bahen Mahu. What if the Shchiv Mina comes and he says, you know what? This person should benefit from his field. He didn't say to give him the fields. He said they should benefit from the field. What's halacha? Did he mean to give it to him? Or should it benefit from him? And therefore it's like nothing. Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, the fruits or whatever. So he says, "Denehave kulu matana kaman." Doesn't mean that it's mamasha matana. Or Dimar maybe he just said, "Litniu mina umide kamar." He just had the kavanah that kilo you should benefit a little bit, but not that it's his or that he gets it. So says the Gemara, "Yirae behen ma'u." What happens if he says he should be seen by him, or ya'amod by him, he should stand in them, or yishayin by him, he should lean on them? What's halacha? In all these cases, take one. Because he didn't say latet laim, matana, latet. He said he should stand there, he should stand on them, he should be supported by them, he should be, but he didn't actually say the words that it should be his, that it should be given to him. So because of that, we don't say anything. Okay, we finish with another teiku. Yeah, ibay lehu. Yeah, another question. Machar kol nechasav mahu. What happens if a person comes and he sells all of the nechasim? Yeah, he sells all his properties. What's the halacha? Can he retract from the sale? So here, usually, what is matana shchiv mina? A matana. If he gave everything away and then he gets up, what happens? It comes back. Yeah. Here, though, right? Here, though, right? It's a little different. Yeah, it's a little bit different than the fact that here, when we're talking about a present, it's not a present. He sold it. So here he came and he sold everything to everybody else. Yeah. So when he comes, right, and he sold it to everybody else, right? Now what happens? Yeah. One more time. If it's going to be a present, it goes back to him. Here's not a present. He sold it. So he sold all his properties. So says the Gemara, Zimni Namar of Yudah Marav. Says of Yudah name of Rav. Im Amad Eno Choser. Right? If right now he gets up, it does not go back. The Zimni Namar of Yudah Marav, and sometimes he said in the name of Rav, Im Amad Choser. It does go back. So he says, Vela Plige. But it's not a machloket really, Bemet. Because sometimes he said yes, sometimes he said no. So what does it mean? It says not a machloket. He says the ma'ot, the money of the mechira, are still there. And therefore, since they're still going to be there and he left them in his reshut and he didn't do anything with them, it meant that he wanted to retract if Be'emet he go better. Meaning he came and he sold everything. Right? The shchiv mina. Instead of giving it as a present, he sold everything. But he kept the money. Why did he keep the money? The Bezrat Hashem, if he gets up, what's going to happen? He's going to give everything back and take back the properties. So therefore, that was when he has the money in his hands. So therefore, everything is going to retract. But he says the first one that says that he cannot retract. We're talking about the shchiv use the money to pay off his debts. They're not there anymore. So therefore, in such a case, of Yehuda comes and he says that if he does actually come and he gets up, he does not retract from the sale. Okay. Kuf Mem Tet Amud Aleph.
The money is restricted, right? Masechet kuna and also kesef kuna.
Ibailu, another safek. Shchiv mera shehoda. When you have a shchiv mera, that he comes and he's going to be moda, the what? That they're not his. Mahu. What exactly is the halacha? Do we accept it? Or we suspect, right, that that he's doing it purposely in order that they shouldn't think that that the children are rich. Meaning, imagine, all of a sudden a guy comes, right? He's on his deathbed. We thought that he owned property in Indian Creek and in this and in Biscaya and all these other high whatever it is places. Yeah, right. No. And all of a sudden he comes and he says, no, it's not even mine. It's not even mine. Yeah. So what happens? Right? Do we say Be'emet it's true? Or do we say no, he's probably just because he doesn't want that everyone starts speaking about the children. You understand? So Tashema, so we're going to try to bring a proof. Di sur giora havale tresar alfe zuze beirava. Right? That a person, his name was Isur. That was his name. His name was Isur. Okay? Giora means that he's a ger. Yeah. So Isur Giora, right? He comes and he says, he had 12,000 zuz by Rava. Right? Now what happened is that he became sick. He was going to die. So Rav Madi Berei, Rav Madi, his son comes, Vehorato shelo bigdusha v'lo bigdusha vai. So Rav Madi, his son, was Horato shelo bigdusha v'ledato bigdusha, meaning the mother conceived, right, when the father was still not a Jew, but the mother gave birth when he was a Jew. Okay, so therefore, since Horato shelo bigdusha, Rav Madi is not considered the son. He's not considered the son. And therefore, he's not fitting to inherit, right? By the way, this happens until today. Some people think, it's their son. Why? Because it's the real, how do you call it, with blood son. Yeah, but if the son, right, was not, meaning that if right now the son was not bigdusha, because he came, whether it's going to be from a non-Jewish woman, or the father was still a goy at the time, and it's not his child. So there's no inheritance. There's nothing there. Yeah? So therefore, it comes out of the problem. So he says, right? So therefore, he has no Yorshim. If he has no Yorshim, the guy dies. Everybody could come and take whatever they want, right? Now, what happened was Rav Mari was in the Bet Midrash. Yeah, he's in the Bet Midrash, and he's hearing all these. Amar Rava. Rava comes and he says, if Isur will die, I'm going to be Zocheh from the Efker. Why? Because they're already might shoot, right? Because remember, who did he have the money by? He had 12,000 zuzim by Rava. So Rava says the first person that's going to be zocheh in this inheritance is who? Is me, because it's already by me. So I'm gonna inherit it.
If I die, I'm gonna inherit it. No.
Not if I die. If Isur dies, Isur was the ger. Right now, remember this ger had a son called Rav Mari. Right now, Rav Mari, he was conceived when the father was still a goy. Yeah, that means it's not his son. So since it's not a son, and I said to you, the exact same halacha would apply the other way around. What happens if the father's a Jew, right? But he went with a non-Jew, right? With a goya. Even if afterwards he converts, that son is not a son. If she converts, sorry, the son is not a son. And therefore, there's no inheritance. 100%, but it's not his son. And therefore, there's no inheritance.
The son cannot convert after?
The son can convert, but it's not considered his son. Because it's considered Ben Avraham Avinu. Yeah, he comes and he converts. He has nothing to do with it. It doesn't care about DNA. It's a lachic son. So therefore, what happens? So therefore, the guy comes and he thinks, he's got inheritance. There's not one inheritor. Not one. So this Rav Mari, this is him. So Rav Mari is in the Bet Knesset, right? In the Bet Midrash, right? And there's nothing. So what happens is, right? He says, Hechi nikninu Rav Mari la nezuze. Right? So he comes and he says, right? How's it going to be that Rav Mari is going to acquire it? Yeah? Everyone understood? One more time. Rav Mari, he wants to take the inheritance of his father. The question is how? How does he take the inheritance of the father? He says, Ibirusha, if it's going to be an inheritance, love bar Yerusha. He doesn't get any Yerush. He doesn't get any Yerusha. Yeah? Ve'ibe matana. You could do it in matana. Matana shchiv mera, ki Yerusha shav Yerubanan. They made it like a Yerusha. Kol hecha dita Yerusha ite b'matana. As long as you have a Yerusha, you could do a matana. Kol hecha deleta Yerusha lete b'matana. Then you can't do a matana. Fine. So one more time, you can't do Yerusha with this guy, Rav Mari. There's no Yerusha. You can't do matana shchiv mera, because the matana shchiv mera is like a Yerusha, meaning if you could inherit, you could do the matana. If not, no. Even Meshicha, right? What about Meshicha? He says, "Letneu gabe." The money is not by him. So he says, "Ibe Meshicha." He says, if right now, right? Ibe Meshicha. He says, if it's going to be, yeah. He says, Ibe Meshicha. If it's going to be with Meshicha, Letneu gabe. Fine. He can't do Matanat Shkimena. He cannot do Yerusha. You know what you can do? Meshicha. Pull the money to yourself. He says, it's a problem. Where's the money? By Rava. The money's by Rava. The money's not by him. So how's he going to do Meshicha? It doesn't work. Okay. Bechalipin. What? If it's going to be chalipin, yeah, and matbea niknet, the chalipin, it's money. Chalipin is achlafa. What is achlafa? You're coming, I'm going to take the para beshor, right? So I'm going to give you the para, you're going to take the shor automatically, even though my para is, I don't know where, right? It doesn't have to be there. That's called chalipin, right? That I'm coming in, I'm doing like a substitute. So for example, right, I need the watch and he needs this chumash. So I come and I give him the chumash, and that means even though he doesn't give me the watch, right? But at the end of the day, what happens is that they automatically come, right, and they do the exchange. Even though I don't, your watch is not here. It doesn't matter. I'm still able to do that because the second that you come and you do the kinyan, the chalipin on this, and you took this, I automatically get the other one. So he says, chalipin doesn't work for money. Here is money. It's 12,000 zuz. Found by Rava. Remember, 12,000 zuz, right? No, זה לא קשור. רק שנייה. You should know something incredible, right? Think of it this way. Just think about the fortune that he was leaving behind. You have 200 zuz is 1 year's salary. Is 1,200 zuz. 12,000 zuz, right? 12,000. So imagine how much money we're talking about that this person had, right? That they had it. Okay? So he says, right? He says like this. He says, so says the Gemara, so 1 second, so it doesn't help Chalipin. But what about Agavara? He could do Kinyan Agav on a field, like Agav Karka, right? So he comes and he says, right, what does that mean? Isur is going to be maknet to Rav Meri a Karka, and Agav a Karka, he's going to come and he's going to acquire, right, the money. He says, Le'ara. Isur doesn't have Karka, right, in order to do such a thing. Right? He doesn't have it. So therefore, what's going on? Right? Everyone knows. One more time, we're going through the list of kinyanim. So first kinyan that we mentioned, right, was meshicha. Right? What is meshicha? You're pulling towards yourself. Then chalipin. Chalipin is the exchange. Then it's kinyan agav. What is kinyan agav? I'll give you an example of kinyan agav. Right? What we do many times, kinyan agav is that, for example, I'm going to rent out my cupboard to the goy where I have my chametz, and then agav, that I just rented him out, and that's why we do it, by the way. Agav, that you rented him out, the cupboards of where the chametz is stored, he acquires the chametz, which is stored there. And that's why, if you come and you put, right, the chametz is in a certain place, that place is also rented to him. And therefore, since that place is rented to him, right, the goy could come and marash, this is where he is. So therefore, that's why some people come and say, Rabbi, I'm just selling my house for a Pesach. I say, oh, wow. So what happens if you have to come back? Nah. All of a sudden they call you up, Rabbi, I have to come back. Yeah, now there's a problem. You just rented out. You just rented out your house for the. Yeah. You understand? You just rented it out. Yeah. So he comes and he says, fine, that's called agav. So kinyan agav kaka. He says, he doesn't have ara. Ibe ma'amad shloshtan, right? He says, what about ma'amad shloshtan? What was ma'amad shloshtan? You remember? They were all there. We had it a few days ago. Ma'amad shloshtan means that the giver, the receiver, exactly, the giver, the receiver, and the third party, they're all here. So maybe he's going to do that, and then he's going to make him acquire the 12,000 zuz. He says, Ishalachli lo azilna. He says, if he's going to send for me, I'm not going to come. Yeah, I'm not going to come. All of a sudden, I'm going to disappear for a few days. Right? Why? Because I want to keep the 12,000 zuz. Yeah? So fine. So it comes according to this then. Right? Rava says that the Isur has no way of Bemet getting the money. So basically, he's going to get all the money. Yeah? So Rava. So one of the Chachamim come and they say, so Matkif la Rav Ika bered Rav Yami. So ask Rav Ika bered Rav Yami, right? He comes and he asks like this. He says, Amai, why do you say that Isur has no way of getting the money? Velo de Isur de halen zuze de Rav Marininu, right? He should be modeh, right? That Isur, that the money belongs to Rav Mari. Velikniniu beodita. And he should acquire it with something which is called hoda'ah. Right? Which, no, hoda'ah, actually the truth is, it comes from the same language. Hoda'ah comes from, right, shatam modeh ala emet, right, modeh ala davar, right, which is also hoda'ah when you're thanking Hashem. Because when you thank Hashem, it means that you're modeh that you accepted something from Hashem, so you have to say thank you. I mean, when you give a thank you, it means that you have accepted that you've done it. So therefore, he comes and he says, very simple, just say that it belongs to him. All Isur has to do is say, this money, by the way, belongs to Rav Mari. What he just did was, Odat Baldim Kimei Edim Dami. He just said that now the truth is, it didn't even belong to him. But the fact that he came and he said that it belongs to him, he acquires it through this Hoda'ah. And therefore it belongs to Rav Mari. That's all that he has to do. Adehachi, right? So Benatayim, until they were speaking the Bet Midrash, Nafa Kodita Mebe Isur. They came a Hoda'ah from the house of Isur, right? But that's exactly what he did, right? So basically, here he says that the fact that they spoke about it in the Bet Midrash, it taught him how to do it, and therefore they taught Isur what to do. The Ikpad Rava, right? Rava was makpid. The Amar, and he says, he went and he said, you're coming and you're teaching people, right, all these ta'anot and all these things, and you're making me lose money, right? Because Be'emet, he would have been the inheritor. He would have acquired a miyad from Hefker. So Rava was makpid, right, on Rav Yami, and he said, what's going on here? He says, you're teaching people all these tricks and all these things, and you're making me lose the money. Yeah, loopholes, exactly, from the halacha, right? So from here, though, you see that there does exist such a concept of hoda'ah, and therefore they actually go according to this. So it could be that maybe Be'emet, we're not going to suspect that maybe Be'emet the Shekhinah was modeh only in order that they shouldn't think his children are Ashirim. You know why? Because Be'emet, if he does hoda'ah, Be'emet belongs to them. Okay? Okay? Fine. So he says like this. What do we say in the Mishnah? We said in the Mishnah that a Shekhinah came and he wrote off all his properties. If he left over one property, it's a good present, even if he gets better. Why? Because the fact that he left something over, it shows that he left it over just in case he gets better. And therefore, if he left it over just in case he gets better, everything else was a good matana. So says the Gemara, Kama kolshu. Right? Kama. Right? What exactly does that mean? How much do you need to leave over? So he says kolshu. Any amount? Right? So he says, I'm going to be the Marav. It says the Marav. Karka kedei parnasato. When it says in the Mishnah, im shier karka kolshu matanato kayemet, that if he left a little bit of land, his present is going to give a good present. That's kedei parnasato, meaning in order enough to have parnasa for him and his family. Not even karka, even metaltalin is that. Because again, karka has to be a piece of land, right? Real estate. Here we're talking about even metaltalin. If he left over, let's say, a boat or whatever it is, and that they rent it out, and with that they're able to live for the month, already enough. They don't need anything else. Okay? So Amar Bizera, says the Bizera, Kava mechavnan shmatet adesabe. Look how meduyak is the horaut of the Zekenim, Rav and Ravimia. He says, Karka tamamai. What's the reasoning why the matana is kayemet? He says the kai samich aleh, because if he's going to get up, he could be somech on the karka and have parnasa from it. So metaltalin, the same thing with metaltalin. Ikai samich aleh. So he's going to come and he's going to use metaltalin. Remember, it could be a car, right? But he's using that car now, so he could rent out the car. He's going to rent it to all these different people, and then he makes money off of it. Fine. So Matkifla Rav Yosef asks Rav Yosef, "Umay kavanta? What's kol kach meduyak in these horaot? Man de amar metaltalin." Right? Karkatan, man. The man damar kedei parnasato, kol shutman. He says, I don't understand what, he's coming and he's saying, kol kavod to Rav and Rabbi Yirmiyah, right? Because, karka was kol shu, we said was kedei parnasato. And when we said it's a karka, it's really metaltalin, right? He says, I don't understand you. If you're going to tell me karka kol shu, it said kol shu, it doesn't say kedei parnasato. And if you're going to tell me metaltalin, it says karka, not metaltalin. So what are you saying? Kol kavod, what kol kavod? I don't understand. So Elmaleh Abaye comes and he says, "V'chul detani karka the karka davka." He says, 1 second. Let's go to your first Tana. You went and he said, "What are the rabbis saying? It's metaltalin. It says mefurash in the Mishnah karka." He says, well, whenever it says karka, it's davka karka. He says, right? V'atnam, we learned in the Mishnah Peah, hakotev kol nechasav leavdo. If a person comes and he writes all his properties to his eved, yatsa ben chorin. Right? He's going to be Yotzei Chol, he goes off free. Right? He's liberated. Shier karka kolshu. If he leaves a little bit of karka, lo yatsa ben chorin. He doesn't go off free. Right? Why? Because he didn't explain which karka he was mishayer. So it comes out that maybe Be'emet it was the Eved himself. And therefore, if the Eved doesn't go free, so then nothing goes to the Eved. He did a whole thing, but it was a play. You know why? Imagine somebody's my Eved. Yeah? So now by being my Eved, I come and I say, you know what? I'm going to write him all my properties, except for Karka. Now, you didn't explain which one. So which Karka was I referring to? The Eved. Now, if I gave everything to the Eved and he's still my Eved because I didn't free the Eved, so then what happens? It comes back to me. So it was a whole like this, right? It was like this.
Find that the Eved is the Karka.
So that's what the Gemara say. This is a Mishnah. The Mishnah comes and the Mishnah, because remember, PA is only Mishnayot, right? So the Mishnah and Tanan is a Mishnah, not Tanya, right? Tanya is a Braita. Tanan is a Mishnah. So he says, Vatnan, we learned in the Mishnah, if you're going to write all your properties to an Eved, to your Eved, Yatza ben Cholin, why? Because you wrote everything. But what happens if you left Karka Kolshu? Says, Lo Yatza ben Cholin. Rabbi Shimon says, no. Lo ben Cholin, he is ben Cholin. Ad Shiomar kol nechasai netunin liploni avdi, chutz me'echad meribo shebahem. Except for one, right, in the 10,000. What we're going to say over here, but he didn't actually explain it. So we're going to say that he was mitkaven to that shiur, to the Eved. Okay? The Amar of Dini, Bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Elazar, asu mentaltalin shiur etzel Eved, velo asu mentaltalin, right, shiur etzel ketubah. That means to do with an Eved, right, that he's saying shiur karka kolshu, the Chachamim come and they say that the metaltalin is also considered shiur, right, which is the Eved kilo. And so therefore, if he's going to even leave behind metaltalin, lo yatza ben chorin. But to do with the concept of the ketubah is a little bit different. That means basically we're saying that ketubah is not the same as giving the present to the Eved. So the Eved is still going to be, right, yours.